Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to the Ferguson Forum, Lessons for Harrisburg, hosted by Harrisburg Hope and State Representative Patty Kim. I'm Alan Kennedy Schaefer. Thank you to the community for joining us here tonight. Thank you to the Midtown Scholar Bookstore for your hospitality. Thank you, Jennifer Young, for the refreshments that will be available to everyone after tonight's program. Thank you, Ryan Slade Bowers from Steelton Youth in Action. And thank you to all of our Harrisburg Hope volunteers. We couldn't do it without you. Friends, please join me in welcoming our panelists tonight. Dauphin County District Attorney Ed Marsico. Harrisburg Police Chief Thomas Carter. Harrisburg City Councilman and Chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Jeff Baltimore. Pastor Nick Peterson of Capital Presbyterian Church, who's from the Ferguson area, is running late. He will be joining us as soon as he arrives. Derek Thompson, Boys and Girls Club Director. Lisa Burhanen, the President of Mothers in Charge. Todd Lawson, Diversity and Inclusion Consultant. And David Botero, Community Policing Coordinator for Harrisburg. It is also a great honor to recognize our mayor, Harrisburg Mayor Eric Pappenfuse. Mayor Tim Scott of Carlisle was actually called to interviews for police officer candidates, so he won't be joining us tonight. But I am really honored that Mayor Pappenfuse is here with us to give a few words of introduction for tonight's forum.
Thank you, Alan. My job is an easy one. I get to welcome you all. I want to thank Alan and Representative Patty Kim especially for putting this forum together. Harrisburg Hope has already established a tremendous history of important conversations here in the community, and we're glad that they're back. It's an important topic. I'm pleased that the city is participating fully in the conversation. We've got Dave Botero, we've got our chief, we've got Jeff Baltimore from City Council, and I will be sitting here taking notes and perhaps chiming in. So thank you all for coming. If you're just coming in the back, maybe a little bit more room on the stairs there. If you come around and you head towards the upstairs, and then maybe a little bit more room up this way. But we've got a packed house, which is a real tribute to the good job that you've all done in getting the message out. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to recognize the other chiefs of police who are here with us. Chief Umberger from Swatara Township, and Chief Martin from Susquehanna Township. At this point, I also wanted to let everyone know we have a standing and sitting room only crowd here tonight. For those who are not here, though, tonight's program will be on PCN tomorrow's at 7 p.m. At this point, to lead off, please give a very warm welcome to State Representative Patty Kim.
Alan and I separately were thinking of doing a forum like this, and so instead of having two events and being repetitive, we decided to combine our efforts together. So I want to thank Harrisburg Hope for working with me on this very important discussion. A lot of us were impacted by what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. Concerns and questions came up that I heard regarding our teenage children and the relationship with the police, the justice system, the police department, racial profiling and excessive law enforcement. I wanted us to come together and talk through these difficult issues and concerns. I think it's so important for the authorities to hear from citizens and the citizens to hear from authorities. Nobody wants a repeat of what happened in Ferguson here in Harrisburg. I respect Chief Carter's leadership and his initiatives for the police department. Can they do better? we can all do better. Tonight, I want us to talk about ways that we can improve, learn from the lessons from Ferguson, and also how the community can do better. What are our responsibilities so that we don't have this spark, this ignition of anger and chaos? We don't want that here. I'd like to introduce and ask the first questions to the panelists on my left. I wanted to hear from people, real people, who are involved in the community and can speak from personal and local experiences. First up is Derek Thompson. He's a graduate of Harrisburg High in 2003 and a Delaware State University grad. He has a master's degree from Strayer University. Right now, he's the unit director for the Boys and Girls Club on Hanover Street and also works in customer service for the Philadelphia Eagles. On this side, he's the director of All-Star Weekend Basketball Tournament, Inc., which teaches the youth important life skills. And for everyone on this panel, I just wanted to start off with, what was your impact, your reaction? What did you take away from the events in Ferguson? Derek.
My first reaction was, oh boy, I hope they have a good reasoning, for killing this young man. I thought about myself. I thought about the children that I go to work with every day. That could have been any one of them. That could have been myself. So when I first saw it, it was just like, oh boy, another one lost. And I hope there's a good reasoning why there was a guy laying, dead.
Thank you, Derek. We have Lisa Bohannon. She is the president of the newly formed Harrisburg chapter of Mothers in Charge. She's also a longtime community activist, teen mentor, and the founder of God's Chosen Praise Youth Ministry. Lisa.
Wow.
Talk closer to the mic.
When I first heard, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
When I first heard about what had happened to this young man, it just took me back to my own personal experience. Me as a mother who lost a son to violence as well as a nephew, still to today trying to figure out what happened to both of them. All I can do is have sympathy for his mother, empathy for the whole community, and just trying to give an understanding of what the heck is going on in our city, in our nation, in our community today, and how as we can come together as one, as a unity, to try to, put a stop to this or even try to lower the rate of crime. That's what was my thoughts on when that had happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Lawson is the president and founder of Spencer World Management, serving as a consultant on diversity, inclusion, and Affordable Care Act. He has over 30 years of experience of management in healthcare at IBM and Highmark. And during one of those positions, he was the IBM Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action Officer in Mechanicsburg. Todd.
Well, my first reaction, I have a 19-year-old son right over there. There's probably not My first reaction was, I have a 19-year-old son. He's right over there. There's probably not a day that goes by that I don't worry about it. And that's just natural. And yeah, we had to talk, of how to act if you're pulled over. And that's just being a responsible parent. But the impact that this had on me was a little deeper, because when I looked at the police chief and he started talking, I got a little concerned, because they didn't have in Ferguson someone like Mr. Bertera here, who can serve as a community liaison between the community and the police department. Am I correct in that regards? And what that does, it showed me a little bit that they may not get it yet. And that's why this situation was able to fester to begin with. So that's the impact it had on me, is when will these communities that are really, Ferguson, if I recall, in 1990 was 70% white, and now 30 years later it's 70% black. So during that phase, the transition didn't occur properly, and they need somebody like that. So the impact on me was, they've got to get it together.
David Botero is the Community Policing Coordinator, a graduate of West Virginia University. He earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication Studies and Spanish. Botero is a merited scholar of the Martin Luther King Leadership Development Institute from Penn State University. He is a second-generation Latino and a native of West New York, New Jersey, which is a densely populated city with a diversity of immigrants. David.
Good evening. On behalf of the City of Harrisburg and the Bureau of Police, I greet you with peace, I greet you with love, and most importantly, I greet you with the spirit of discernment. And really, quite honestly, with this tragedy, It is an eye-opener, locally, regionally, statewide, nationally, and I was in South America when the news broke, so it's a global issue for sure. Harrisburg, without a doubt, is a resilient city. It's a capital city. Our region is very resilient, and we persevere. And I feel that this is always a great opportunity to get neighbors to talk, for partners, organizations to collaborate, training to take place, and opportunities so that we can continue to educate our children and our young adults to talk about compliance, to talk about respect, and to honestly learn about policing ourselves and helping our neighbors police our neighbors with respect and with dignity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have District Attorney Ed Marsico. Your assistant, Fran Chardo, has been a Harrisburg Hope panelist before, and we appreciate your participation with us today. Michael Brown, as the community knows, was 18 years old, from Ferguson, Missouri, shot at least 6 times, including twice in the head, on August 9th by white police officer Darren Wilson. Brown was unarmed. An op-ed that I wrote about the shooting received more than 500 comments on PennLive. There's been a lot of outrage, a lot of passionate feelings about this. Governor Rendell said that if charges are appropriate, they should be brought as soon as possible. My question to you is, in your experience, should Officer Wilson face charges, and if so, what charges?
Well, Alan, I'm not the district attorney of St. Louis County, so it's not for me to say what charges he should face, nor am I aware of all the facts in this particular case. But let me talk about how things work in Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, to give you a little bit of background. In Dauphin County, if a police officer is involved in a shooting, even if no one's killed, if the officer uses deadly force, the district attorney's office and their detectives investigate the shooting. Harrisburg police don't investigate when one of their police officers are involved in a shooting. And then ultimately the district attorney rules whether that shooting was justified. And by that, what my role is, what the DA's role is in Ferguson or in Harrisburg, is should criminal charges be filed against the police officer, can it be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that that officer is guilty of murder or manslaughter in the killing of another human being? It's not my job to say, is this the best response the police used, although we make some recommendations, but our job is to legally determine whether the officer was justified. And the legal background for that is similar in most states, and that is whether the officer reasonably believed that he was in fear of death or serious bodily injury and had to act either to save himself or others from death or serious bodily injury. So that's sort of the legal standard we look at to determine whether someone's justified. St. Louis County is doing that now. The federal government is doing that now. There's dual investigations going on before grand juries, which sometimes we use in Dauphin County in these cases, but most times we conduct the investigation and make a ruling on our own. The toughest decisions, among the toughest decisions that we make in our own.
And a quick follow-up to that, District Attorney Marsico, on the grand jury question, just as a general matter, what are the steps that we can expect to see in this case as it moves forward?
In Ferguson, they presented the case to their grand jury. It's a group that, as I understand it, out there meets once a week, so it takes time. Grand juries aren't sitting all the time. In Dauphin County, our grand jury only meets 2 days a month. So when you have a case that goes before the grand jury, it's going to take a little bit longer. The grand jury are made up of citizens, just like you, selected. They sit. They play the role with the police and the prosecutor as an investigator and determine whether the facts, as instructed by what the law is in Missouri or Pennsylvania, whether the facts give rise to a criminal charge, and then recommend that criminal charges be filed. And as I understand it, that's what's happening in Missouri appears their grand juries are made up of 12 people in Dauphin County, and Pennsylvania ours are made up of 23 citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Marsico. Next is Harrisburg Police Chief Thomas Carter. Thank you for being with us, Chief. We appreciate the participation of the administration and the police department here. I know this is a sensitive subject. In a Penn Live interview recently, you talked about how you would like to see more of an equal number of minority officers compared to white officers, in your words. Our city is 52% black. Our police force is 11% white, according to the article. Is our police force is 11% black? What concrete steps does, so it's an overwhelmingly white police department. What concrete steps does Harrisburg need to take to meet that goal that you were talking about?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me here. Thank you for having me here. Good police officers come in all colors. So I am not saying that we have to have all black officers compared to white officers. But what I'm saying is that with Harrisburg's population, the first thing we have to do is get more black people interested in becoming officers, police officers. And that's a major task because for some reason, there's a gap between the way that black people feel about being police officers and about police on a whole. For years, there's been a problem with participation in the hiring process because of the way that young black men and young black women feel that the police view them. So we're into the school systems now. We're hitting the junior high schools, the high schools, trying to make people understand, that there's nothing wrong with being a police officer. We're talking to parents, because back when I was growing up, your parents used to teach you that if something goes wrong, go find an officer, a police officer. They're your friends. Nowadays, I hear parents telling kids, don't talk to that police officer. They're enemies, so we're trying to change the culture. And maybe, more people would want to be police officers if they can understand and see the true side of police officers.
And just to follow up on that, something that wasn't in the article that I was curious about is there a gap on the applicant side in terms of who's applying to be a police officer in Harrisburg, and is there a gap in terms of meeting the requirements? I mean, where do we fall short currently that we can try to bridge that gap?
I think there's a gap in the number of applicants that apply for the job. The Police Chiefs Association, Chief Umberger, myself, and Chief Martin, we try to recruit black officers. But it's just a big problem where, they don't want to be police officers because of the disparity in treatment. They feel that they've been picked on and profiled for so many years. And to be honest with you, I also felt that way, and I said the only way to change something is to become part of it, to understand it, and that's how we bring about positive change.
Thank you, Chief. Next is Harrisburg City Councilman Jeffrey Baltimore. Welcome. I appreciate you being on the panel as the public safety chair for council. Harrisburg has had 9 homicides this year, including the murder of Nathaniel Green this past Saturday. This terrible violence, not the same as Ferguson, as the Michael Brown shooting, but I think the question that some people are asking is, what are the lessons from Ferguson, and how do we make sure that there isn't a gap between the community and the police here in Harrisburg?
Excuse me. Well, I think, and Chief Carter alluded to it and spoke about it, part of Ferguson, in my opinion, is a learning opportunity for the nation to discuss these issues. It's this kind of forum that we should do should have community discussions about the issue. The perception of the police by the community about the police officers is directly related to the treatment that the minority community has received. It's historic. And so there are ways maybe to combat that, and that could be just better policing, more getting out of the cars, more talking to citizens. I say that communities need to police themselves, and they get help from the police. When we have something that's over-policing of a community, that's a different scenario, and I think sometimes the minority community views itself as being over-policed. So if you're looking for crime, anywhere you look, you're going to find it. And if you look harder in one place than you do in another, you're going to find it. In a lot of ways, well, this is more of a minority city, but in a lot of ways, crime and drug use and all of those things are equally proportionate, but the numbers bear out that black people or minorities are more disparingly a target. And the way to try to combat that is just do better policing, have better relations with the community.
Right, and specifically, I think in Ferguson, it could be argued that there might have been excessive force by the police in terms of the Michael Brown situation specifically, and then involving the protesters afterward, peaceful protesters being tear gassed or journalists arrested. Are those issues applicable to Harrisburg?
Well, I think those issues are applicable to policing these days, the militarization of police forces. They're showing up on scene with tanks and SWAT teams when, I know they're serving warrants with SWAT teams. And some of those things, it's an over-militarization, it's a strong show of force, and I understand it. But on the other hand, do you really need a SWAT team to serve a warrant? Is that police officer if he's not good enough to serve a police officer with one or two as a backup, then he shouldn't be or she should not be a police officer. I think we've just over-militarized our policing.
Thank you. Councilman Baltimore is, I think, in part alluding to Program 1033, a Department of Defense program that's given billions of dollars in military weapons, assault rifles, tactical vehicles, MRAPs, night vision, other weaponry to police departments throughout this country. It was reported that Dauphin County had been the recipient of some of these weaponry. Is that, are you able to speak to that at all?
Yes, excuse me. That is true. But look at the flip side of it. We're dealing oftentimes when we're serving those warrants. The mic's not on now. We're dealing a lot of times with when those warrants are being served with people that have arsenals, in their apartments, in their houses. We all know you've talked about 9 murders this year, Alan. There's way too many guns on the street, and that's the biggest problem we have. And the police, we don't want to send in a guy that's not adequately prepared, that is not adequately equipped. So a lot of that equipment that has been obtained over the years has gone to good use. Many of you remember in Hall Manor, about a year or so ago, we had, and I was there, a horrible shootout where we did use armored vehicles, robots, all kinds of equipment. One Harrisburg police officer was shot, fortunately wasn't hurt that badly, but there's a reason for that police equipment. It's because the citizenry they're dealing with, the criminal element, is armed to the teeth.
Thank you.
Can I, at least, and I'm not countering or debating anything you say, and let me say this for the record, that I believe Harrisburg is different, way different than Ferguson. Sorry. I said I think Harrisburg is way different than Ferguson, and I don't dispute anything anybody says about that local situation. And I do want to say that Chief Carter, Chief Martin are some of the best police officers that I know. You got to have a heart for policing, and if you don't, you shouldn't be a police officer. This gentleman here, grown up here, went to school here, knows the city. Chief Martin is one of the best people I know. He's a baseball coach and has helped many kids out in situations that he didn't have to help them out. So, and he's the kind of leader, as is he, that their kind of leadership permeates throughout their police force. So you got to have the right guy at the top of a police force. And obviously, in my opinion, Ferguson didn't have the right guy at the top. You got to, like I said, just to repeat the term, you got to have a heart for policing. And I believe we're blessed to have the people that we have in place here in this region. So I just want to say that.
And I think that was borne out when they actually brought in the state and the State Highway Patrol, the National Guard, to essentially replace and take over for the local police department in Ferguson. Thank you. Speaking of Ferguson, Pastor Nick Peterson, my pastor at Capital Presbyterian Church, and Destiny Hodges, who's our vice president for Harrisburg Hope, we appreciate you being here. You went to the same high school as Michael Brown. When he was shot, you went back to Ferguson. You told a Lancaster newspaper, quote, "There are communities all over the United States that understand that we are not different than Ferguson, that what happened in Ferguson can happen here." I really just want to hear about your experiences during this time, and talk about why you went back to Ferguson and what it was like on the ground there.
Yeah, I'm a native of St. Louis. Came this way to Pennsylvania to go to school. Graduated from Franklin and Marshall College, and then went to school across the street to the seminary. And when the news came, before it was national news, my Facebook and my Twitter were blowing up about this kid who was shot in Ferguson. And the picture that popped up was this picture of a kid who was wearing the red and green, the Viking red and green of my high school. And when I sort of got more details about who this kid was, what was taking place, I was immediately disturbed, but immediately understood how something like this could happen. In St. Louis, and particularly the area where all of these events, where this particular event took place, St. Louis City and St. Louis County, which make up the St. Louis metropolitan area, the county in particular is composed of over 90 different municipalities, some of them as small as 3 blocks. So like by the time you get from Verbeck all the way up, to Forester even, you're already in a different municipality. And these municipalities have their own mayor, they have their own police force, and they make their money by ticketing. They make their money by over-policing, which I think was something that was mentioned earlier. Now what happens, and the thing that I think is important to note, is that there is a criminalization of black youth. And anytime you are suspect, once I am afraid, I have the right to shoot. And in Mike's Brown, in the case involving Mike Brown, there was no gun, there was no weapon, there was nothing that was sort of shown. But once Mike Brown became intimidating, however that was displayed, whatever force was necessary in order for that officer, for Darren Wilson, to feel comfortable would be justified. And had this not received national attention, like so many others, this would just have been swept under the rug. It's unconscionable. And this is from my own experience, being one of very, very few black students at a predominantly white institution, a very selective and prestigious white college, where I know there are more drugs used on any given weekend at my alma mater than I've ever seen in my own neighborhood growing up. But there's a very different mentality about what white students do on college campuses versus what black kids do in the hood. And that's problematic.
Thank you, Pastor Peterson.
We're going to be taking questions from the audience very soon, but I just wanted to highlight Ryan Slade, who is volunteering with us, a young man with Steelton Youth in Action. If you could give him applause for being with us and working with us. And if you're with the Boys and Girls Club, can you raise your hand? We'd like to acknowledge you as well. There you go. All the way up around.
Brian, you get to ask the first question.
All right. Well, I mean, one of my questions are, as a African American living in Stoughton, PA, and then as I walk up and down the street, I'm always turn around and look behind my back because I'm scared to walk through Stoughton. I never interact going outside. I don't do those things, and I just stay at home. You know, stick to the books. And I mean, it kind of scares me to see the things that are happening out in the world out there, and see what things that are happening out down there that can happen here. It can happen next door. It can happen on the same street that I live on. So my question is, the things that happen with Trayvon Martin and things that happen with Ferguson, what can we do to prevent that happening here in Stoughton and Harrisburg?
I would start with over here with Lisa from Mothers in Charge.
I really think that right now our community has a lack of structure in it. I believe that if we will come together as one and stop trying to point the finger and blaming one another for the issues that are happening in our community, you know, they say united we stand, divided we fall. You know, I feel as though if we come together, you know, maybe all of us together can make a difference. We here at Mothers in Charge are advocates for crime victims. We're trying to eradicate as well as reduce crime rate that's going on here. We are partnering now with Steelton Youth in Action, and I feel like if a lot of organizations come together and try to snatch our young ones up and give them something to do, you know, there's no way that a 15-year-old should have been out here shooting someone, you know, at all. You know, maybe his parents or something is not home, but we are mentors. And I feel like if we all come together and snatch back what really belongs, it's more than a black and white thing. You know, we're fighting against a higher power here. You know, and that's where we need to see the big picture at. We all need to come together as one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. I also wanted to give a chance to Derek Thompson from Boys and Girls Club to speak on that as well.
I would say I grew up 19th and Zarker, right on the hill here in Harrisburg. One of the things that has really helped me to get where I'm at, surround myself with, you know, positive people. I stay in church, and you know, you put those two things together, you can't walk around fearful because things can happen anywhere, and you have to stay focused on what it is that you want to do. And if you keep yourself around positive people, stay in church, you know, nothing's going to hurt you. You know, you'll be able to do whatever you want to do in life.
Let me take a stab at that. I'm born and raised in Stilton, and in Stilton all the time, every day. We're not trying to go to Mars here. If you denounce somebody for the color of their skin, or you don't, for any reason like that, you're racist. If you take the time to not understand their culture because of the color of skin, you're ignorant to somewhat. And if you're both of those, you might be hopeless. But the point I'm trying to make is, you know, Stilton has some issues right now, and we know that. We have about, 5,000 people down there right now, largely 70% minority. However, the workforce, the police force, is still largely white. I think now with some of the council people that we have on board now, it's a very diverse council. Ms. Danae House is here right now. We got a new police chief down there, John King. I think this is the perfect time, because of this issue, to bring us together in Stilton. I talked to you about that this morning today, that we can get down there so that young black men like yourself have an understanding of what's going on down there, so you're not as fearful, okay? So those things will be forthcoming.
Thank you. Mr. Vitero, David Vitero, do you want to give a final word on this?
think it's less about what can we do, and quite honestly, it's to highlight the things that we're already doing. If anything, the city of Harrisburg and Dauphin County is it's incredibly resourceful. There are people and places, organizations to reach out to talk about race, to talk about culture. Dauphin County hosts the Diversity Networking Forum on a monthly basis. It's free, it's open to the public. Anybody can come, and everyone should be encouraged to come. We have great resources, a pillar of the community. We have the YWCA, and it's not just anybody. It's Executive Director Tina Nixon, who continues to apply herself and her resources. Back in the spring, they hosted a conversation about race and racism, a workshop called Let's Talk, and involved Chief Umberger, Chief Martin, people from Harrisburg City, and I guess I'm getting the time here. Also YWCA has the Community Resource Network, another opportunity for us we are creating a police training initiative, working alongside the Department of Justice and the Human Creation. Stop. Got it.
Thank you. I would also like to recognize Councilwoman Danae House from Steelton for being with us tonight. And Danae's a good friend and helps to and coordinates the Steelton Youth in Action, which is doing a lot of great things for the young people in Steelton. We appreciate that. At this point, as always with Harrisburg Hope, we want the community to ask the questions. It's open mic. We have 2 microphones, one to my right, one to my left. We hope you'll go up to the microphone or have it brought to you. We can do that as well. So we'll go to our next question. If you would make sure to say your name, and everyone has 1 minute.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Flood, and I'm with the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus. I have a couple, remarks and then questions. We spoke about, what I can fit in a minute. We spoke about the 1033 program, one of the things, the excess property program. The one thing that we did is we investigated the mechanics of that program, and what we found out, and what should be noted is that, at least as to our understanding in Pennsylvania, in order for police departments to procure that property, it has to be approved by the local governing body. So don't just blame the police departments, also blame folks you have on council in the respective municipalities. Secondly, we spoke about excessive force. The one thing, I guess let me get to my question since I see that we're dwindling down here. As it relates to recruitment, I know that we're trying to get more blacks in the police department. There was a report that came out that there's also Hispanics. There's a disproportionate rate of folks in Waco, Texas, for instance. The rates are similar. What steps are you guys taking as it relates to recruitment, and are you guys open to maybe conducting tours for the youth? We're trying to encourage our young people to go into STEM fields. We also can take that same approach as it relates to law enforcement.
Thank you. Sorry. And on the issue of 1033, which we briefly talked about, if you want to start, Chief.
The 1033 program is a good program. The Harrisburg Police, we joined that too. You have to understand this, that we are dealing with a different youth right now. All of them carry guns. They carry big guns. That's right. My officers are put in constant danger every day when we go after people wanted for robberies, for homicides. And these people that are out here committing these homicides are not using little guns. They're using big guns. I do use the SWAT team when we do go search these people, but I can guarantee you that the SWAT team, the search team, whatever that you want to call them, they're not out there to bring any harm to anybody. They're out there to bring peaceful resolutions, and get the people to surrender. I am not going to put my officers in any situation that they can't win. I'm not going to stand by and watch my officers get gunned down when there's help out there for them. Just like victims have families, my officers also have families too, and I got to take care of my people.
District Attorney Marsico.
And with regard to the 1033 program, I think Councilman Baltimore made some good points. I think what's important is how our leadership deploys the resources that they have. And we saw in Ferguson, I think, a response that shocked a lot of people. And I'd like to think we wouldn't see that type of response here in Harrisburg because of the police leadership we have, the relationships that we have with the community, the council people that are, whether you're in Steelton or in Harrisburg. I really think that while we need some of that equipment for certain situations, it should be only in those situations where it's called for, not every, a peaceful protest. And I think we're very fortunate here that we wouldn't see anything like that. We save that equipment for when it's needed, when we know the other side's going to be armed and dangerous. And as Chief Carter said, that's when we have to protect our police. So I think we're all sort of on the same page here, and we need to express that.
I just wanted to add a little bit about the leadership is so important, and I am very pleased with our leadership with the police department. What was most telling in Ferguson was not the gunshots and where it was in Mr. Brown's body. It was the first sentence that the officer said to two kids who were walking down the street. One account was, "Get the F off the street." That shows the complete disrespect for the community. And what happened, it escalated. He felt hit, he pushed back, and then ugliness happened. And so I believe with our police chiefs, they would never let that happen. Would you say that to a white grandmother walking down the street? The first thing to say is, "Get the F off the street"? No, you wouldn't say that. So you knew with this officer that he didn't think very highly of these boys. And bad things happened. And that's not going to happen with our police force, with our leadership. Thank you.
Gene Albano. I wanted to agree with Chief Carter when he said that police officers come in all colors and in all, backgrounds. I think that's so true. I come from an Italian heritage, but, it doesn't mean I was part of the mafia, either. So I think we've got a good police force. I also wanted to agree with Mr. Thompson when he talked there because I've got a grandson who grew up in Lambertville, New Jersey, and I have a nephew who grew up in Clearfield who is on the police force. But the thing is that I was worried about my grandson growing up. He's 22 now because I was always worried about his friends, who he was surrounding himself with. And thank goodness, I talked to his mother just last night, but he never got in trouble all through high school, but it's because I happen to know his friends that he surrounded himself with, and that is so important, Mr. Thompson. Just one other thing real quick, and that is I am concerned about the number of crimes in our city, but this is something that I'll take another time to talk about.
Thank you, Chief.
If I could say something about that. We do have crime here, but if you look at the numbers, the stats, our crime stats are way down compared to where they were the past couple of years. So, we do have officers out there that care. We're out there doing a great job. And I take my hats off to our police officers, not only to our police officers, but to the DA's office for the support that he's given to Chief Umberger, to Chief Martin, because, if crime is up, Harrisburg area is up throughout the whole county, and we have come together as one unit, and we're all out there making a big difference, sir.
Chief, I agree with you. I think I should have restated that because what I really meant is I'm concerned about the freedom of getting guns. So not really the crime in our city, but the excess of freedom of guns and, and so forth. So that's what I really meant.
Sir, I can let you know that so far this year with my officers working the street, the task forces, we have taken over 150 guns off the street from our youth.
Thank you. Our next question.
Hello, my name is Erin. I am the product of a local prominent attorney. I am the half-sister of someone who works in the public defender's office. My daughter is mixed. I only lasted in Steelton about 9 months before I moved away from there. I am quite sure that my civil rights were violated. I'm not going to stand up here and complain. I have some suggestions for you today. I manage a hotel. It is important for me that I stay happy, cool, calm, and collected when I manage that hotel, and I stay professional it is imperative that your officers stay professional. When I have an officer approach my vehicle spitting tobacco, acting in that type of hillbilly-esque fashion, I know I'm about to have a problem. I'm asking you to weed out your police office force. It will make it much more prominent to African Americans to want to work for you. Therefore, we won't have such of a problem. That's all I have to say today. Thank you for listening. It's different when you have a black person in your car when you get pulled over.
Thank you.
All right, we'll have Wendy Carter next.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was a police officer here in Harrisburg 25 years, and I would like to say we can all agree to disagree, and there is going to be some of that with all of this topic. However, I am the mother of a 22 and a 24-year-old young man of color. Their father sits on this panel. And I say that if we want to make a difference, I support Representative Kim's ideas of come out with it already.
The racial profiling
Right.
prevention.
We need to get more racial profiling done all across this Commonwealth, because there are even officers on our force here that still don't get it. And I love Harrisburg. I was born and raised here. I'm a product. My suggestion, how can we help resolve this? How can we do something to eliminate the Ferguson thing here? Crime Prevention Month is in October. And all I was going to say is that I think with regionalizing the police departments, maybe the chiefs.
Thank you.
Okay, so got nowhere. Thank you. Thank you.
Just to speak to that, I think one of the elements of the conversation that especially informed by a faith perspective is this notion of what is a neighbor. We hear the talk about crime being decreased, and the way crime is decreased is not because you have more police or even better police, is that citizens are responding to issues differently. And so, in as much as we talk about the militarization of the police and the way that our federal government supports the militarization of our local police, we also have to talk about the militarization of our homes. We have to sort of talk about the kinds of things that, and not only just the fact that guns, I've yet to move into, and I've traveled all across the country, I've worked as a recruiter, I spent time in many urban places, and I've yet to find a gun factory in the heart of any downtown urban area. In fact, I don't even know a black person who works at a gun factory that is in America. And I know a lot of black people. And so the extent to which guns are prevalent in our community, they're not being manufactured there. And so it's easy to say it's this kid's problem and we'll hold this child accountable for having a gun. But who made it? And how did it get from the manufacturer plant into this city?
Thank you, Pastor Peterson. And as a reminder, if everyone could say their name, and we're going to limit everyone to 60 seconds so that we can try to get to as many people as possible. We know a lot of people are here tonight with us and have opinions and want to be able to ask questions.
My name is Casey Stokes Rodriguez. I'm a licensed social worker, and I work in John Harris High School and Scott Elementary School. And I just noticed a common theme of communication, positive changes, improving perception of police officers. And I can't help but think of when I walk into Scott Elementary School the day I walk in, and there's a security officer in the kindergarten floor, on the first grade floor, and the second grade floor. And so kids, and I know security is not police, but as kids it's an authoritative, policing figure. And so when kindergartners get in arguments, police come and they don't learn to police themselves or conflict resolution. They learn that there's an authority figure that comes to their classroom, and that's how it's handled. And so I think that there's a correlation between when young kids grow up, especially in the city, because you don't see that in suburban neighborhoods where security polices the schools. And I think that young kids grow up learning that, that's how problems are handled, police comes. And so it's not surprising to me that kids don't talk to police officers, because what they know of security growing up is that they come when there's a problem, they come to get in trouble. So I don't know if it's much as a question, but to hear comments of if anyone thinks that maybe something should be done about removing
Thank
security from schools or another solution.
Thank you, Councilman Baltimore.
I'm glad you pointed out your experience as a teacher, and I did not want to leave the stage without mentioning what is termed as the school to prison pipeline. And that school to prison pipeline is in effect primarily on young black males because young black males are perceived differently. Anytime that a kindergarten kid is arrested, anytime a kindergarten teacher cannot handle a 5-year-old, whatever, black, white, girl, boy, anytime that is an issue that you cannot handle a 5-year-old, or that you treat your minority male students in a very different manner than everyone else, you are criminalizing their behavior. You're creating criminals that don't exist yet. And so you end up attacking a victim. So he becomes what you've created. And then when he's here, then you can't do anything but lock him up. We're unsafe. But we've created that, and we created that from a young age. Now, I don't discount the responsibility of each family. We have to police our families. We have to police our homes and our neighborhoods. It starts at home, but not everybody's equipped to do that. And so the next line of defense there is the schools. And so the schools need to provide equal treatment across the board so as not to create criminals at 5 years old.
Lionel Gonzalez.
Yes, my name is Lionel Gonzalez, and I just want to say hi. One thing, I have been doing a lot of volunteer work, which I have been doing like for a hospital, but also I do crossing guard. And when I do the crossing guard, when I was doing the crossing guard, I tell the student a lot of things, especially from Dr. King. I had a dream that my 2 kids won't be judged because the color of the skin or the context of their character. I'm always tell them to have character is something important. The character, you don't show it to people. People see it. Also, I want the police, Mr. Marcico, to be aware, and when I do volunteer work in hospital, it's an issue with birth certificate from a lot of Hispanic patients in which they are using the wrong one. Many have been stolen from Puerto Rico. And sometimes when they check the computer, Social Security don't match.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And Mr. From this side of the panel, did you want to speak to this?
I didn't want to leave former officer or retired officer Carter hanging. She did have a question regarding police training and talking about what we're doing. And I did kind of allude to it a little earlier regarding the community response network. We are working and have been working. This is prior to the Ferguson tragedy that started in the spring. But we are working with creating a police training initiative that focuses on reducing racial profiling, working with culturally diverse communities, and learning more about our civil rights and hate crimes. It's something that we need to focus on, that we can always learn and relearn, and it's an opportunity where we're working not only with the city of Harrisburg, but with our local municipalities, all of our leadership and law enforcement, including council, and working with the community. So I wanted to make sure that that question was answered.
All right. Yep, Todd.
I want to talk about what we're doing with the kids again, because we're ruining so many of these kids' lives at such a young age. I know so many guys that are now 25, 30 years old that made a mistake with marijuana and so forth. But we live in the information age. They see this going out in Colorado. These states are making revenue, money, doing the same thing these young kids did when they were younger trying to survive. And they know that. They know that. And it's sad. I want to talk about profiling for a minute as well, too. A lot of people profile. I mean, where I live, if someone moves next door to me, and they may not be what I think they should be, I might have an attitude towards them. It's how you handle that situation that's important. That doesn't mean I'm going to run up on them and be ignorant about them. I might go to extend myself to them. I have a white neighbor, 82 years old. She was scared to death of me when I moved in. Now we're best friends. So it's how you handle the profiling of the situation that's very
Thank you.
important.
Representative Kim.
I'm going to toss it over to Pastor Paula Bolin for the next question.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pastor Paula. I'm not here to preach, don't get worried. I'm a community advocate, and I have a 4-year-old great-grandson whose life I fear for every day. I want him to grow up. I want him to know what life is. And because of this, this is my community. I was born and raised in Harrisburg. And I was looking at a program that was done in Oakland, and it was sort of like an ROTC program that was done through the police force. And through that program, 40% of the boys that were in that program were successful in graduating high school and also attending college. 60% of those young men still have good relationships with those officers. I am begging this city to try it. You know, nothing beats failure except when you don't try. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. If you read my article, the Penn Life article that I had on Friday. Thanks, Paula. If you read my Penn Live article, I talked about that. And right away, Jason, he got in contact with me. And when I saw Jason today, we talked about doing that, and we're going to go out and solicit funding so we can have that. There is no greater hope and no greater value in the education of a young black man, or for any child for that matter. We are getting sick and tired of seeing our people in the system, you know. And so the only way that we can take them out of the system is to educate them. To educate them and like give them a feeling of worth, because a lot of youth, you know, they don't have that feeling, you know. So we want to put that hope back in their hearts. We want them to see, you know, that you can make it too, and that Harrisburg is on the rise with the education, with the police, making this a better neighborhood for everybody, all nationalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, final word on this.
Also, to add to Pastor Paula for your inquiry, we are actually in the process, a little bit beyond the infancy stage, of having reignited the Junior Police Cadet Academy. We have 8 students from Roland School, between the ages of 12 and 16, boys and girls, mostly boys. We're working closely with them and under the advisement of 2 of our sergeants. So we're working closely. It's something that has worked in the past. We're looking at local and national studies to pick from the best, and it's something that the school district is very much a part of. And if you see me on the weekends with the community stuff in McGruff, I'm always wearing the police cadet shirt. The kids ask about it. There's a little bit of a fall off at times, but we have a lot of interest in it. And it's something that, it's a pilot program as it's kicking off. And over the weekend during Capona, one of our major sponsors that we kind of hit up all the time approached us saying, we want to help you create that. So we're getting a lot of good response from the community and our local deep pockets, we call them that.
Thank you, David. Our next question with 60 seconds.
How's it going? I'm Chris Senek. I live off of Green Street up here. I was in Ferguson last Saturday, and I have some thoughts on it. Thought that the rapid self-organization of youth was beautiful and inspiring. There are so many ordinary neighborhood folks that were taken to the streets that never exercised the right to protest before, and they were met with severe repression. But when asked about where I was from, I felt nothing but welcome out there. Everyone was like excited for me to come out there and like see what was going on with my own eyes. And like the media obviously was telling us that they were all looting, rioting, but that definitely wasn't the case. In fact, if anything, it looked more like a mural up here in the street. So the most inspiring peers of mine out there were the contingent of youth that broke off from the traditional like leadership that's been there for a really long time, and they were like, we're going to the police station right now and we're voicing our opinion. And that opinion that they voiced was that we need to build our own schools, turn off the television, and elect our own police force.
Thank you very much, Chris. I'm going to go to Nick at this point. I want to develop a little bit more on your experiences as well, going back to Ferguson after this.
One of the things that shocked me not only before I got to Ferguson, but before I left, was the silence of religious institutions. And to the extent that there's a sense of individual responsibility that undermines our sense of understanding how systemic issues of injustice impact our communities long before someone can make an individual decision. And so when I got back to Ferguson, it was quite interesting to see that the most of the folks who were voicing any kind of concern for the issue were young people who are not a part of the church or part of anybody's religious institution. And that's problematic because I don't know another Jesus who did not side with the oppressed, who did not side with the folks who were marginalized and undermined. And so I would challenge any person of faith in here that your church, your community needs to have a voice about why Pharaoh is killing all of the Hebrew children.
Thank you. Our next question, on my right.
My name is Diane Boone. I'll keep it brief, and I'm always available after this if you want more of my opinion. But I believe as police officers protect the citizens who pay taxes, we can try beanbag guns, especially being able to identify children from adults' beanbag guns. The next thing is, instead of the mentality of taking back our streets, we need to get the mentality of taking back our children. I have heard too many times people say, what's wrong with these kids? These are our kids. They're not aliens from another planet. They're our children. And thirdly, if you really want to find out what you need to do, there's two elements missing. There's the police officers that are on the street we're not listening to. We don't hear what they have to say. And we have the youth who are not represented here. They need to talk. You want to know what they're going through, you need to talk to them.
Thank you.
I just wanted to toss this over to Derek Thompson with the Boys and Girls Club and what you guys are doing to help get the kids engaged and give them bigger opportunities and not just what's down their block.
One of the things that we're looking at doing is bringing back Midnight Madness, and what that is taking children off the street between 10 p.m. and 12 p.m. And keeping them entertained with basketball. A lot of children. There's not a lot to do in the city for children after hours. So there's no clubs, things like that. Which a lot of it could have been from them messing it up themselves, with always fighting and things like that. So just giving them an avenue. And if sports is an avenue, why not do that? And with that Midnight Madness, we encourage the police to stop by and interact and even participate with the Midnight Madness. And I think basketball can be a bridge for the young children to communicate with police officers.
Thank you.
I would like to take the time, if Councilwoman House is still here, acknowledge the fact that she started the SIA program in Stilton Youth in Action, which is really galvanizing the youth in town. She does a lot of weekend events, and we're starting an after-school program right now. We're in the process of doing that from kindergarten all the way up. But we will have outreach. These kids need people like myself, maybe, to talk to them. They can see role models. I wasn't scared of the police. I had a dad that was serious enough for me, so that was the extent that I had to worry about. Kids don't have that. So we're hoping that with SIA, all the good things you're doing, we're doing some things down there.
And Lisa.
I'm a after-school coordinator at the Camp Curtin YMCA up here on 6th Street. And just like the Boys and Girls Club, we also have a 10 p.m. to 12 o'clock a.m. basketball that we do on every Thursday as well. We also have teen achievers up there. Right now we're trying to prepare the kids. We have a SAT program. It's called SAT Boot Camp to prepare our youth for their SATs. And we have open gym where the youth is welcome there every day to come and just play basketball. We have the Sisters Helping Sisters program, the Man Up program. So, you know, you can't tell me that there's not nothing out here for these young men and young ladies to get into. If us as a people and parents would take the time to put our children in things, you know, and then they wouldn't have all this leisure time on them to get into things. I was the parent that was always at the school. I don't care if my son was right or wrong. I was there trying to figure out what can I do to make things better. And, you know, nowadays you can't even say boo to or hi to, you know, children, because the parents is just as bad, or either they're not there when the kids come home. So, you know, like I said, we as a people have to come together and be mentored to those that are latchkey kids that don't have no one there when they come home. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. The next question.
Hi, Deb Ritchie, resident and lived and worked in Harrisburg over 25 years. What we did in the early days of when the public became aware of the financial crisis facing this city, we sat down in structured groups and talked and brainstormed. I challenge us to do something like that. I commend the Y for your work in beginning a discussion, but I encourage us to look to another structure. I'd be willing to be a part of organizing a community-wide structure like we did in the early days of trying to understand our financial situation. The Y has these 10 questions in your lobby. I don't know what their source is, but this is one question that we could maybe use as homework to explore my identity, to understand my history and how I experience privilege and oppression. I really appreciate this dialogue. We need something internal that we can make sure that our children are protected, that our streets are safe, and our communities what we want it to be. So if anybody wants to take me up on that challenge, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you, brothers.
There is some good news, as the mayor and the chief said. You know, some types of crimes are down, and one of the big areas we've seen a drop in crime in the last 10 years is juvenile crime. We don't have near the juvenile crime that we had 10 years ago, and part of that's because we're looking at being smarter on crime, at using evidence-based practices, not just to over-police or lock kids up, but to see if a kid needs help. If it's a drug problem, get the kid help with drugs or alcohol. And we're using different strategies. We've seen it pay off in the juvenile realm, which is a really good thing. I mean, I know, you know, I grew up in the city of Harrisburg a long time ago, and you know, at that point in time, you felt safe walking around. You know, I feel bad for Ryan. My dad grew up in the city and talks about growing up there and what a great, diverse place it was to grow up. So, you know, I think we're seeing some good things happening in the juvenile realm that'll pay off later, and we're trying to apply some of those same strategies to adult offenders now.
Mr. Marsico, I know you have a tough job, and I know that we have some serious issues, but I have to highlight that Dauphin County has the highest recidivism rate across the state. We need to do more. Programs, I get it, they're good, but we got to do things that will change the system, shock the system to make it work. The expungement bill that I'm trying to push, I feel like it's a no-brainer. I know we kind of disagree, but we have people who come out of prison and they can't get jobs because of the charges. Being in prison, paying their fines, 7 years of a clean record, that shows that they have changed, that they are going to, they can turn around and do something about it. You can't handcuff them, even out of prison, expect them to go and do well. They can't. The system is not working for them. Minimum wage. How can you work 40 hours and still be below in poverty? We cannot sit here and say, I know what you're doing, when you don't understand the walk that they're walking. And it is tough. It is a struggle that they do every day. But you know what breaks my heart? These people work so hard, but they're quiet. They're suffering quietly because they can't get ahead. And we need to give them the tools to get better and to succeed. That will bring the recidivism rate down. That will prevent them from going back to prison. I don't want to fund prisons. I want to fund schools. walk in an ex-offender's shoes for 2 months and see all the challenges, and then maybe we can try to fix the system.
Thank you, Representative Kim.
And Patty, you know that the DAs have worked with the legislature on expungement legislation. The problem is with the legislature itself getting it through, not you, but with some of your colleagues. In Dauphin County, we are also spending a lot of time on reentry initiatives. The county, as well as our Criminal Justice Advisory Board, I see Vladimir back here, Charlotte Plains from PCCD, we are spending a lot of time on what's called reentry, making sure that offenders, once they're out, have opportunities, whether it's jobs, housing, things like that. Frankly, it's not the job of the DA. My job is to prosecute and see justice, but I'm sick of seeing the same people come back through the court system. So I've changed what we're doing in our office to be proactive in those types of things. And I think Dauphin County's, while we have a high recidivism rate, we're one of the leaders in progressive making changes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're to look to for programming. And I'll be honest with you, it's not where it should be, but we're getting there. And I think a lot of that's because we have good partnerships in the community, and we're working to further those.
Thank you. Our next question.
Hi, my name's Tressa Wood. Last Monday afternoon, with my nieces and my mom, I was walking down Susquehanna Street to Emerald Street. A brown unmarked car pulled up in front of us, and 4 big men got out of the car. They were wearing bulletproof jackets. They had automatic rifles. They didn't wait for us to walk past the car. They got out in front of us. They are obviously cops. And at that moment, everything escalated. Like, everything. I picked up my niece. I told my mom to hurry up. Like, how is this protecting us? I was scared.
I only heard your version of it. I'm sure you know that they are scared, because sometimes when I see them jumping up the car.
I walked into a SWAT team last week. There was no precautions around. There was just them and us. How is that okay?
Obviously, the SWAT team, they were looking for someone they were going to pick up someone. It's unfortunate that you met them at the same time that
There's no one on the street. They could have left us walk past.
I wasn't there, so I don't know what their thinking was. I'm not saying that it is, and I apologize for any harm that they did to you and your family, ma'am. But they were not after you. They were there to serve a warrant.
Thank you.
And you're right, ma'am.
Thank you. We've got to go to the next question. We're almost out of time.
Okay, I really don't have a question. My name is Charlie Lawson, 74 years old. I was a successful businessman in Harrisburg for over 30 years, dealing in the worst areas or whatever. I got along with everybody. I want to tell you 2 people, first of all. I know Chief Carter for over 40 years. One of the best street police officers, vice officers, well, you just name it. He'd be on the spot to help you believe it. I also want to laud a program that the district attorney has. And I hear a lot of complaining, but you and me need to educate ourselves. They have a program, the district attorney does. When your child gets in trouble, they have a juvenile diversion program. Write that down and remember that. That can stop your child from ever having a record and having it expunged. If you go down yourself personally and explain your problem. That way you don't have to be afraid of the police. My son gets arrested, he's gonna make bail, this, that, the other. Go down yourself, try to take advantage of that program.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Regal, and it starts at leadership, D.A. Marcico. And now that it's hit home with you with your own son being charged with another individual, I'm watching to make sure justice is served equally, because he was involved in a crime with a black young man. And from my recollection, when I read the article,
Let's not get...
but I'm a mother in charge, and when a mother faced tragedy for her child and was told by leadership that her son is in a better place, how do you console that mother and that their son didn't do what her son did? I want the public to know that's what our leadership in DA says to a mother that had lost her child. Her son was in a better place and that his son didn't do what her son did. That's what our leadership is about. And then Chief Carter is going to try to make amends for the SWAT. They could have let that family walk past them before they exited the car. Simple as that. There's no apology needed. Just do better. Train them up. Like they say, train up a child in the way they should go.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker.
Train our leadership up.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker.
I don't think I ever said to any mother, and I've met.
You won't say it publicly, but you said it.
I've met with more parents who have lost loved ones in the 25 years I've been in the DA's office than I care to remember. And while we're talking about Ferguson and a police-involved shooting, our problem here is kids shooting kids. We need the community's involvement, the church, council, everybody to help stop that. I've seen too many moms who have lost kids to senseless violence. I've also seen too many moms whose kids are serving life sentences because of senseless violence. Both families are torn apart when that happens, and there's no closure on either side forever. And I stand by my office's record prosecuting violent crime. I don't apologize. I know what I do, how we do it, and I think we do the best we can. Can we do better? We're always striving to do better. I wouldn't be here tonight if I wasn't trying to do better.
Thank you. I have a quick follow-up question on that for the chief and for the district attorney. In a situation, if an officer does something that is inappropriate or uses excessive force, what are the protocols that you would follow in that circumstance? How do you take action? Because I'm just wanted to have some, reassurance and just knowledge of what does happen in terms of investigating it or taking action at that point.
If a Harrisburg police officer uses excessive force, the complaint will be filed. I will call the DA's office, county CID. They will investigate it, a thorough one. If there's any wrongdoing found, the appropriate action will be taken. It's unfortunate that we had that tragedy of Michael Brown. I wasn't out there. I saw the news clippings. I read some news clippings, and right away, I called my captains, and I wanted to make sure that it will not happen here in Harrisburg. Could it happen? Yes, it could happen. But I'll tell you something. During my watch, I promise you that I will make sure that it does not happen. Because what happened out there, I don't have all the answers. The grand jury is still looking into the case. If there is a clear 1983 civil rights violation, then the appropriate action will be taken. We have to get the facts first. But I will do everything that I can do to make sure that our youth, the people of Harrisburg, is treated with compassion and fairly. You do not have to be a monster to lock up somebody. You can treat them with dignity and compassion, and that's what I strive for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Can I speak just real quick to one diversion? Oftentimes when the conversation is around excessive use of force, police brutality, it quickly moves to child-on-child crime, black-on-black crime, and sort of some of the other kinds of issues that are present. I cannot hold a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old child more accountable than I hold someone who is trained to be a civil servant. And so if our officers cannot be agents of peace in our community, and if our court systems cannot be agents of reconciliation, agents of hope and true justice, then we are a society most miserably lost and have no hope and nothing to offer anybody.
Thank you. We're going to take the next question.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a statement. First of all, we need to stop talking about this is a community meeting. We live in neighborhoods. None of us is living in a community. We don't own nothing. We ain't controlling our schools. We don't control any of that. We got two of the people up there who are the main people who aggressively incarcerated young black men. Not only that, you sit up here and you criminalize all of our young black men early. I'm talking about in the school system by putting them in special ed, putting them on medication and Ritalin, which is worse than crack and cocaine. That's crazy. And then you sit here and say, oh, well, why are they committing all these crimes? Why do you think? Because you criminalized them, and then you brought them back and laid them right back into the penitentiary, from the school system. And we sit here and talk about Brown. How are we going to disrespect a young black man like that with this forum? You run around here killing young black men on a repeated basis. Only one gets reported on the news. Yeah. There's 5 or 6 of them disappearing every day. The Washington Journal had an article in there that said young black men are killed every 2 weeks by a cop. Every 2 weeks. Y'all stealing all these young black kids. None of them walk around throughout the neighborhood. We don't see none of them. You're gentrifying the communities and bringing them back in. This is ridiculous. And then you want to have a forum about young black men. Y'all disrespectful. Don't talk about no black man if y'all ain't doing nothing for them. And then you got the representative up there, a black figure here who's a so-called peer. This is ridiculous, man. Y'all sick me, man.
What have you done, sir?
Mr. Boyd.
Good evening. My name is Mr. Boyd. I'm a community activist. And I'm a community activist. My name is Mr. Boyd. I commend this so-called forum this evening. I know everyone up there. But watch this one. What's in the dark comes to the light. What's in the dark comes to the light. Patty Kim, congratulations. Congratulations. You had enough backbone this evening to speak the truth. You had it. I was used to be your enemy. Now I'm your friend. And I say to the police here in this great city, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Thank you. We're gonna move to our next question.
Okay, can everybody hear me? I don't have a question, I have a solution. My name is Robert Candidate. I'm the chairman of the Faith-Based Committee for Dauphin County, and we run all the programs for the county. We work with the police, we work with Representative Kim. Everybody supports our program. Now, what I see in the community is we have isolation and pockets of silos where the community is not coming together. Every summer, we have over 1,000 children off the street. You don't hear about our kids because they don't make statistics. But what I can't get the community to do is put their children in some of our programs. Our program is evidence-based and it works. And we get support from this whole panel up here. Detective Tim Carter goes with us to leadership training every year along with the National Guard. First of all, I'm a special operations military, okay? And what I did in the military, I use the same method outside here. It worked, evidence-based practice. So we need the community to come together. We need to educate our children about the system. We teach them strength and what to look for. Let's not always dwell on the issues. If we dwell on the problem and don't dwell on solutions, we're going to continue where we are. So I got a package here tonight I'm going to give to the representative and Mr. Marchico to join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for 2 more questions and then we've got to go to our closing statements.
Hi, my name's Mike Alexander, Dauphin County Community Support Program. We work with people with mental health issues, and that's one of the issues I would like to address, is how the police and the law enforcement community in Dauphin County deals with the mentally ill. If you look at the statistics nationally, a lot of the problems that police have with the shootings are people that have clear mental health issues. And we need to do a much better job of dealing with the mentally ill. The other thing I'd like to ask is, what kind of mental health training do you have, as well as what kind of mental health evaluations you have of law enforcement officials? I mean, are there psychological evaluations before they become police officers? What happens after they become police officers?
Thank you very much. We'll let the chief speak to that, and then we'll take our last question.
We do get mental health training. They go through psych vows and everything. We are not experts in that field. I will be the first. I will tell you this, that we do need more training there. So we don't have all of the answers. I would tell you this here, that we do have a lot of mental health people walking around this area, and we don't have all of the answers. So that could be an area that we are lacking in, but I promise you that we are looking at getting better training in that area.
Thank you, Chief. We'll have to...
30 seconds on that.
Real quick.
Did anybody see the St. Louis County police officer named Don Page that was on the video ranting about how if you don't listen to him, he will kill you? Okay, he had 35 years in the police force. What I think we need, and I'm not saying you don't have this, Chief, is some kind of internal affairs that can pick up these people before the tragedy occurs. This guy should never be, that's not the first time he said that to somebody. He had to have some friends. He was too confident in spewing that kind of hate. And if he didn't believe the president was from Hawaii, he didn't prove, they gave him documents to prove that. He even flew to Africa, to Kenya, to try to verify. How's he going to feel comfortable when a young black man hands him his registration and his ID? If he doesn't believe the president, come on. Those guys should not be in office.
We're going to go to our last question real quick.
My name is Craig Corbin. This is my little cousin right here, Stilton, Pennsylvania. I represent Stilton, Pennsylvania and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Todd Lawson, I got about 90 kids, boys and girls, ready to wrestle in Stilton with a partnership with the Christ Cornerstone Academy. Patty Kim, Ed Marsico, Chief Carter. I have about 40 or so kids at the Allison Hill Community Center already competing in wrestling. Brother at the Boys and Girls Club, I'm waiting to hear back from Mark Hawthorne to put a program over in the south side of Harrisburg so they don't have transportation woes. I also have a program ready to start up at the YMCA up on 6th and whatever street, Forest Street. Wherever it's at. I'm out here working by myself. If I can get some more help, that's all I need is a little bit more help. I already spoke to John Wetzel on the phone with recidivism, creating jobs, blah, blah, blah. My question here is, what's next?
Thank you. At this point, while the panelists think of their closing, the last gentleman.
Wait a minute, I said every 20 minutes on the 4-year-old baby.
Look, this comment is going to be short. I've been in Harrisburg 9 years. I come to these forums. I hear about what they're going to do for these African young men, African American young men. But where are they? You need to bring them in here so that they can receive what's being said, so that they go back and implement what is said, so that way that everybody is on the same page. I don't see no young African American man in here to hear what we're saying, what we're trying to do for them. So my thing is this. Why don't you just get these guys to come in here or go to where they're at? Go to where they're at. They're not coming to the bookstore. They're not coming to the bookstore.
Thank you. We're gonna let the panelists collect their thoughts. Brian, you can move. You can go over there. And I wanted at this. Go ahead. You have 30
Hello. Thank God I'm here. I'm going to start that right there. I got shot 19 years ago. I'm blind. I respect everybody here, and I respect all the heart I just heard. But one thing I understand is, and it makes me mad, we got a William Penn up there that need to be open. Don't be a community, don't be no old folks home, make it back to a school. Then we have William Penn, then we have Polyclinic up there that's shut down, that we need hospitals. We can't push everybody in Harrisburg Hospital on type of noodles. Come on, man. Where's our help at? I'm blind. Y'all all know this. What happened to me? I got shot in my head 19 years ago. Where is the help at?
Thank you. Thank you very much. At this point, we're gonna have the panelists hold up, as we do at every Harrisburg Hope event. We'd like to give them the Harrisburg Hope Civility Award. So if you could hold those up, we want to give a big round of applause to all of the folks on our panel for being civil, for being here, and talking with the community. Thank you. I'd also like, before we're going to do our final remarks, please, if you can, we'd like to thank again all of the volunteers who made tonight's event possible. We'd like to thank the Midtown Scholar Bookstore for having us here, and I would in particular like to thank Representative Patty Kim for co-hosting this event.